2023 has been, well, it's been a year, that's for sure. And recounting through that year is exactly the mission here. Now, before I get into it, and before you rush to your keyboards and angrily type, "That's not a 2023 movie, that came out in Japan in 2022. You know what? I've tried to find definitive criteria for what differentiates release year for non-North American films in my country. Sometimes they count, sometimes they don't. I don't know. It's about as confusing and convoluted as making arguments for why some anime count as anime and some don't. I live in North America, and if the film received a wide release of some kind for the first time this year here, and I don't mean at film festivals, I mean mainstream release, or if I was able to just watch a 2023 Japanese film before a wide release, we'll talk about it here. It just simplifies things and cuts the confusion. Also, there won't be every single anime or toku movie on here, and I apologize, but I did try to watch as much as I could. Now let's begin. If you've watched either of these projects, Violet Evergarden or Silent Voice, and were struck by their beauty, then, well, I mean, honestly, just check out anything by Kyoto Animation. But since we're talking about a specific movie here, check out the series Tsunade and its latest movie, Anime Boys, the Countryside and Archery, the perfect recipe for an aesthetically brilliant experience. Following the exciting conclusion, following the exciting season 2 in its entirety, everybody's favorite shape-shifting, man-eating slime returns. If you thought the show was great and would love to put the main story on hold for even longer, so you can watch Rimuru and friends go on a feature-length 6 out of 10 OVA storyline, then this movie is perfect for you. Make no mistake, the temporary new characters and back-and-forth Uno reverse cards during the film's final moments make it absolutely all worth it. From the creator of Evangelion, Hideaki Anno, comes the script of a film directed by the special effects wizard and mind behind everybody's favorite live-action anime. Oh boy. A film so fast-paced, you'll need to take precautions ahead of time to prevent narrative whiplash, in the best way possible. Filled to the brim with nostalgic 60s music and Evangelion battles track, quirky characters, and eccentric villains, Shin Ultraman has spared no expense in delivering its insane amount of monster-smashing, science-smashing, and butt-slapping action. It's a complete blast and has no shortage of existential questions of existence and our place in the universe. Are we even alone? What does it mean to be alone? Are we just being controlled by higher powers out of fear and worry of being shut out or destroyed? What is destruction? What will bring our destruction? If it's by an outside force, did we go too far to deserve it? What is the outside force? Are we all just helpless beings looking to gods for guidance? Does God help us or do we step up? What does it mean to step up? Are we all just dangerous and fickle beings to others and to ourselves, or is there redemption and hope in our future? What is hope? Or, I mean, you can just watch it as a fun monster movie too. Yes, it's time. The greatest anime in history returns with another movie. Okay, you know what? No offense to the SAO fans out there. Standing strong, you have my respect. A sequel to the 2021 movie, Aria of a Starless Night, Skirts for the Deep comes in guns a-blazing. Even if those guns do feel a little cookie cutter. A little awkwardly structured, maybe, but it kind of works. If you're a big fan of the feeling of a culmination of a story and stakes during an action film's climax, then this one may not fill your boots. However, if you prefer final battles that just happen and are completed without much struggle or tension, still with 20 minutes left in the movie to do nothing but set up the story of another sequel, then Skirts for the Deep Night is the perfect movie for you. Here we go. One of the most popular rom-com anime returns to continue its story with a movie. With no shortage of mature jokes and crazy reactions, Kaguya-sama is back at it, and I can't tell anymore if it's just trying to parody the genre or just is the genre. But it's hilarious the whole way through, nonetheless. Kaguya has also been added to the list of anime films that are fun, yes, but still structured like 4 episodes of a show and not an actual movie. But I mean, it's still a great 4 episodes run together. Now, this is not even a movie. I would say it's 3 episodes cut together to make a movie, but it's also not. It's literally just 3 episodes playing back to back, openings and all. As long as they continue to make each arc of Demon Reverse Card into premiere movies that nobody will watch outside of the theaters because, we'll just watch the show, then I'll keep going to see them. Because it's a fun time for fans to support a series they love. So I'll support these events. And the Hashirado training arc is getting a premiere movie as well, so if I get it, you can bet I'll go see it. Tsuburaya continues to refuse to break their tradition of giving their main New Generation Ultraman series a movie only a month after the show actually ends. You may be thinking, that actually sounds kind of cool. 25 episodes and a movie as a finale for each new Ultraman? However, despite redoing this formula over and over, not once have they made the movie actually be the finale. They've always ended the series within 25 episodes and then made an additional crossover story to capitalize on their other Ultraman characters. Until now. Sort of. Even though Decker still has its finale in episode 25, the movie serves as a nice epilogue, introduces new characters and sends off the old ones where they will continue their story off screen for now. Predictable? Yes. Underdeveloped villain? Definitely. But the ending is nice, and if you like Ultraman Decker, then it's a great addition. One of anime's most brutal and clever dystopian sci-fi stories is back. If you're tired of AI being overused as the problem in movies, then I see 2 options here. 1. Run far away. Or 2, stay and watch it be done well again. This is also a movie that suffers from following a great show that's already reached its peak, but don't let that stop you. Providence is still a great time for fans. Sakamoto returns to his horror apartment in the form of a prequel to Aragne Sign of Vermilion. Once again, making the project almost entirely on his own, be ready for another creepy crawly filled low budget horror game looking indie anime, Amrita's Groundhog Day. weirdly moving between CG animation and 2D at what feels like 6 frames per second, it'll have you wondering what the meaning is, only to find out in the end that, oh, this is just a weird movie. But still good for Sakamoto for doing this almost entirely on his own. From the director of Your Name and Weathering With You comes a beautiful story that we've all wanted to see, Shinkai's latest masterpiece. That time I got reincarnated as a keystone. Shinkai does what other filmmakers have been afraid of since the moment that train first drove across the screen. And he answers the question, what if I fell in love with a chair? And from that question comes a heart-wrenching story inspired by the sorrow of the 3/11 disaster. No surprise here, but if you're into beautiful skies and a great mix of, semi-questionable, but well-written romance, science fiction, and a fantasy story brought into a real-world setting, then Makoto Shinkai is your man. In the year of the Netflix adaptation that quote-unquote broke the live-action anime curse, comes a movie to prove to us that the curse was never really lifted. If you want proof that good actors can in fact be ruined by a movie's terrible execution, then Knights of the After Effects is the one to turn to. And if you need more confidence that AI is being utilized to write some of these scripts, then again, this movie's the one to look to. Think of any overused and cliche trope in the action romance genre, and this movie probably did it at least twice. If you're a fan of hilariously bad movies, this is one you should add to the watch list with that in mind. Do you hate CG anime? Do you find sports anime boring? Do you find constant flashbacks during cinematic moments frustrating? If so, then maybe you should check out Space Jam in Japan. Bringing some of, if not the best looking mixture of CG and 2D animation to the table, the speed and intensity of the game is brought to the forefront. Over 2 hours, and only one game is played from start of the movie to the end, remaining exhilarating the whole time. All while we see backstories of different players that are just as captivating as the actual basketball game. And this comes from someone who doesn't watch basketball. This ends up being one of the best anime movies of the year and a total slam dunk. See what I did there? Another fast-paced roller coaster of emotions comes from, yet again, Hideaki Anno. A faithful yet completely new version of the very first Kamen Rider is exactly the superhero movie we needed for those tired of all the cookie-cutter flicks flooding the markets. And in typical Anno fashion, we get an extremely creative and stylized experience full of crazy fun action sequences, purposeful continuity breaks, and even a fight scene lit only by explosions and bug eyes. So, if something isn't on fire, you basically have no idea what's going on. It's perfect. Shin Kamen Rider vs. the World brings us back to the superheroes of our childhoods. We move closer to the heroism of the 60s and 70s adventures and away from the oversaturated market of modern heroes. The best moments of the film come from the quieter breaks to spend with characters talking and growing together. One minute we get over-the-top fight scenes, and the next, we delve into discussing the chaos that both thinking only of our own happiness above others and being completely in the open, losing privacy and individuality in the process, can bring to society. What truly differentiates happiness from pain and cruelty? We're all just searching for happiness in ourselves and our own desires, but we'll never actually satisfy that desire. So should we betray this so-called peace to discover a real kindness? Yeah. It's also just a lot of fun. Being adapted not from a manga, but a novel comes. The one key was the friends they made along the way. You know that feeling you get when watching a movie that's based on a book, and you can just tell from the exposition and settings that it was adapted from a book? I don't know exactly what differentiates this from a normal screenplay, but you can just feel it. Maybe I'm making sense, or maybe I'm just talking gibberish to you. But in any case, this movie gives off that feeling the whole way through. It's not a bad feeling, but it's different. I don't know. I'm just talking nonsense at this point. If I've lost you, then I guess you now have a good feeling for how this movie's plot is. Just kind of all over the place. But if you love comically dramatic music over the slightest of moments, then this movie is perfect for you.
How should I start it? Here she comes. Speak, you fool. You like jazz?
Well, I certainly do. And if you do as well, you may have seen a little film called Whiplash. And if you like the movie, then Blue Giant is the anime for you. Following a triad of characters with different goals, one aspires to become the greatest jazz player in the world, one's dream is to find the play at the so blue, and one just wants to be able to understand the expression in the music by learning to play with his friends. The soundtrack is never not the most relaxing jazz or bumping jazz in anime history, and the story is just beautifully executed for the most part. With Blue Giant, prepare your eyes for hands down one of the most beautifully animated musical performances in years, and simultaneously, some of the ugliest. Be ready for incredible jazz, solid animation, and sudden shots of CG animation dispersed randomly in the middle of musical scenes that come with not only completely different movements, but also altered character models that make it seem as if nobody skipped arm day for a moment. But the soundtrack and story are absolutely great. Get ready for teen romance, beautiful animation, a strategic opening and ending, a pretty score including emotional lyrical songs at all the right moments, and time-altering science fiction in a real-world setting. If you thought I was describing a Makoto Shinkai movie, you'd be wrong. With a melancholy atmosphere connecting the film together, saying this is a poor man's Shinkai flick might be a disservice to what we actually have here. If anything, there might be a slight feeling of not having done quite enough due to its really short runtime, but there's still plenty of emotion not only in the story but in the visuals alone. resulting in an overall positive experience. Rejoin Asta and friends as the wizard action increases tenfold in this fast-paced and fan-serving event. If you love Black Clover, great. If you don't know it, prepare to be dazed and confused, but get ready for some cool-looking fights to make it all worth it. Don't miss One Clover. Become King of the Wizards. Taking a brief break from the summary of otaku movies of 2023, I wanted to give you a quick summary of the YouTube tradition. Now it's my time to thank you for watching this far and remind you, the subscribe button, the like button, as ways of connecting with the YouTube community and showing appreciation. Now, back to the movies. In a glorious return to form, the world's favorite radioactive lizard, Gigantus the Fire Monster, is back. Deemed by many to be among the best movies of 2023, the hype is certainly not misplaced. While we cannot deny the incredibly executed monster destruction sequences as to what makes this film so incredible, the biggest reason Godzilla Minus One is as good as it is because it does something very few Godzilla movies have ever dared to do. And that is, it actually puts the focus on creating an emotional story with brilliantly written characters to connect with the audience. When watching the American Godzilla movies, or even some Japanese ones, the monsters show up and we get excited, but then they leave and we have to watch the humans, which becomes a chore you have to sit through in order to get to your reward the next time old Goji shows up. Side note, despite how I made it just sound, I do actually like the legendary Godzilla movies as well. But with this movie, Monster Human, the entire movie is entrancing in its story. All I'm saying, you know what movies get? When you get literal chills at all the same moments every time you watch it. Remember that very specific genre of teen espionage from, probably the early 2000s? Like Cody Banks or Alex Rider, those kind of things. Ah, the memories. Simpler times. And hey, Detective Conan is absolutely giving off those same feelings I got watching those other movies back in the day. An overall fun time with an extremely entertaining art style as well as being just generally nostalgic. Even though I've never actually seen any of the Detective Conan series before this movie, so figure that one out. For those of you who grew up on Doraemon, first of all, bless your heart. And second of all, 2023 is the year for you, because the old chap is back to show what real cinema is. After all, the best children's movies are the ones that showcase themes and messages that no child could actually come to comprehend and makes the adults get more out of it than the children it's aimed towards. It's a masterpiece. I love it when they very obviously make a manga into an anime to grow the series' popularity so they can promote the live-action movie coming out a couple weeks into the anime's run. And surprise, surprise, we also got that this year. This time we see Japan presents Akira of the Dead. Here we have an original story of how society has turned people into quote-unquote zombies, and how our main character has become a societal zombie himself. But when an actual zombie virus breaks out, our main character is forced to see another side of himself and chooses to live freely. The first hour of this movie is a fun horror comedy with exciting visuals. The second hour becomes a jumble of, 4 or 5 different small arcs from the source material, going completely off the deep end in a way that they really fail to sell you on. But overall, if you're just looking for a bit of fun, Zom 100 has the possibility of being just that, if you let it. Because I know you all exist, for all you bunny girl senpai enthusiasts, 2023 was also your year. Not one, but 2 new movies in the Rascal Does Not Dream series. I didn't get to seeing the second 2023 movie, but I did see the first release. Rascal does not dream of a sister venturing out. While this title is meant to be semi-poetic, it's also very accurate. Rascal does in fact not dream of a sister venturing out. He dreams of something else that will probably come up in a future movie. Even if there's a good story and message in this movie, prepare to put that on the sidelines to watch Sakura do pretty much nothing for a good portion of the already really shortened movie. But if you love the characters, there's definitely still plenty here for you. Following the events, of the series SSS Gridman and SSS Dynasty, we have Gridman Universe. Yet another accurate title. Okay, you know what? Time for full transparency. I've never watched the TV shows before this movie, and I've not actually seen the Tokusatsu Gridman series before either, so this was my first full-on exposure to the character. And I have to say, even though they explain some of it, the plot goes so far off the rails in a completely ridiculous fashion, where it feels as if anything goes and I have no idea what's even happening anymore. Now some of you hear that and go, oh, that sucks. And some of you hear that and go, that sounds fun. Well, I'd agree, it was fun. Although I was completely lost at some points, Gridman Universe is an absolute blast of a movie. Great music, fun animation, funny comedy, and wild action. This is just an all-around good time. And sometimes, we need a bit of that. Yes, it is true. We've gotten more fate to add to the confusingly convoluted timeline, where anyone who claims to understand it in its entirety is probably lying. If you like watching movies where characters continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, expecting different results, then this is the perfect experience. Seriously, stop trying to summon servants. They never obey you, and they never will. It's all a lie. Learn. It's okay. It is kind of an epic 50 minutes, though. It's time. For Yaoi awaits for no man. Prepare yourself for the most aggressive floating shapes you will ever experience. If you miss them through all the longing and flirtatious stares and handholding, don't worry. The shapes are there for the long run, so you'll see them again. If you loved following old Sasuke and Miyano, then don't miss their romantic graduation in The Shapes in Our Stars. Okay, you may not have heard of it, but there is this little movie called Spirited Away. You should look it up sometime. is pretty good. So essentially, it comes from this indie studio called Studio Ghibli, and it was made by this small-time filmmaker, Hayao Miyazaki. You may or may not have heard of him. Well, anyway, this year he released his final, but maybe just kidding, but who knows, movie, How Do You Live? Known in the West as The Boy and the Heron. In typical Miyazaki fashion, it follows a child in a story about grief and human nature, featuring an abundance of side adventures along the way, and a creative array of the freakiest little guys. They're so beautiful. Coupled with beautiful animation and music, this is not a movie you will soon forget. You know, I thought I put the series behind me, but it just keeps resurging when I thought it was done. Featuring the stories that were cut from the main anime, we get one of the most weirdly paced and chopped up movies I've ever seen. You know what? Never will the series not be ironically hilarious to me while also being kind of uncomfortable. Remember people, these are teenagers. Also, as an added bonus, if you forgot how boring of a protagonist Uesagi was, then this might be a good refresher. Man, you literally have no characteristics or qualities other than you like to study. Why are all these people infatuated with you? Why? Anyway, it's fine. Thanks for listening. I've been Shin Glassman, along with one last call to subscribe, and as always, I will see you in the next one.